people in charge of Colorado's magic mushroom rules are like, dude, we got no idea what we're doing. This state did not get into a kid's mental health crisis overnight.
We've lost 2,000 residential beds over the last decade.
We look at the years of decisions that have left us dangerously unprepared to help young people in crisis. Xcel has placed its bet on next year's natural gas rates. We better hope they're right, because it's our money they're betting with. And a good catch by a smart Next viewer. While the state says you can keep all your TABOR refund, federal tax collectors aren't so sure. I promise you all this program will cost you is 30 minutes of your time. This is Next. You placed a bet on next winter's energy bills today. You placed a bet that natural gas is going to be more expensive. Place that bet even if you didn't know it, because Xcel Energy made that bet with all our money. If Xcel is right about gas prices, then we should all save money next winter. If they're wrong, we'll all pay more than necessary. So our Marshall Zellinger was naturally curious to see their math. Turns out, you can't see it.
To protect us against high gas costs, Xcel has a plan today to buy gas in the next few months ahead of next winter. Hedging is supposed to protect us against high spikes in the price of gas. Xcel Colorado President Robert Kenny told me how much Xcel hedges earlier this week.
We hedge about 50% of our gas needs so that we can limit the amount that we have to purchase in the spot market.
Simply put, the more you hedge, the more you're protected when the price of gas skyrockets, like it did in February 2021. Otherwise, you have to buy at the price it's going for in the moment. On the flip side, if Xcel hedges and the price of gas drops when we need it, we overpaid.
So every gas utility in the state would tell you it's a reliability resource first and an economic resource second.
Erin O'Neill is the Public Utilities Commission chief economist. She explained Xcel's gas purchasing plan to the commissioners before they voted to approve it.
This sort of seasonal hedging strategy is very focused on the upcoming heating season, and it's sort of trying to address medium-term price movements.
Here is their plan, at least the one the public gets to see.
I mean, I think what's really interesting about the publicly available PUC filings is that the majority of the actual content and substance that you need to make an informed decision about the performance of their previous and current hedging proposals is redacted.
Breezy Carlson is an oil and gas attorney who tried to help make sense of what does not make sense without the actual numbers.
For an average ratepayer to be able to determine whether or not they have faith in the program that's being implemented and or requested, it's very, very difficult to do without being able to see any of the actual data. In a regulated utilities market, there is no reason to have secrecy from the consumer.
I believe the reason is trade secrets, and you don't want to give your competition in other states a tip-off of how you're going to buy gas because it might impact the math you've done. I believe that's the reason. You can hear why we should still perhaps see it. We get a few emails from people asking about the price of natural gas right now, and it's low. But Erin O'Neill, the PUC chief economist, explained to the commission, you can only store so much for so long, and Xcel needs to go through what it has right now, cycle out the system, and then wait till next year to buy it. That it's just not, it's not something you buy now for next winter. It's something you buy later in the year for next winter.
It strikes me that we want them, the energy experts, to use all of their brain power to make these bets on our behalf because they're the experts. But I mean, can their shareholders lose out on a bad bet, or are we responsible for the bad bet?
No, I believe this is how you protect shareholders from the bad bet. That if you think gas is going to be $3 and it ends up being $6, everybody wins because you got it at $3.
Yep.
But if it's $3 and it's $1 when you need it, we, the ratepayers, paid $3 and we're not getting that back. And I think the shareholders are insulated from that.
This energy billing stuff, it affects so many people in our state, and every night I open up my brain and you pour in the facts. And I appreciate it. I feel like every night we get smarter. Thank you. Democratic Senator John Hickenlooper is part of a group of senators now asking federal regulators to investigate Xcel and other investor-owned utility companies for quote-unquote abusive practices. Hick's letter to regulators says some utility providers are driving up costs for consumers and breaking the rules as they try to fight a shift toward clean energy. The senators want the Federal Trade Commission to force utility providers to put out annual reports about their business practices. Hickenlooper's letter does not specifically name Xcel. It does, though, come right out in support of a petition submitted last year by environmental organizations. That petition does call out Xcel for failing to keep up with solar projects in Minnesota. That got Xcel fined $1 million by state regulators there. Magic mushrooms are causing some confusion, even for Coloradans who are not taking them. I'm talking about the state agency that is supposed to regulate the new psychedelics market. The group is now saying they have no clue what they're doing and they want help. Voters passed Prop 122 in November. It decriminalized possession of psilocybin mushrooms. It also required the state to set up licensed treatment centers where people can go to take them under supervision. The proposition put the Department of Regulatory Agencies, DORA, in charge of setting up the state guidelines. DORA usually deals with stuff like banks, not shrooms. So DORA is telling state legislators that they have, quote, no resources or expertise on psychedelic substances. Sure you don't, guys. But for real, they're asking for $700,000 to go find experts in magic mushrooms and have them help write the rules. That should be a trip. Mental health emergency room visits by Colorado's kids have more than doubled in 5 years' time. We lack the beds needed to care for them. You got families with nowhere to turn. If you think you've heard this story before, you have. And it's because we keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Here's Anusha Roy, who's tracked this situation and possible solutions for years.
In the more than 4 years that Kari Eckert has bravely shared her family story,
Robbie died on October 11th, 2018.
one thing has stayed the same.
Suicide in 2018 was the leading cause of death for teenagers. That still holds true today. I think we can change that.
It's why she was at the Capitol today meeting with lawmakers, urging them to take action as the number of kids in ERs during a mental health crisis jumped from just over 2,000 in 2016 to more than 5,100 in 2021.
So much of it comes down to funding, but we can't use that excuse anymore.
But how did we get to this dire place for everyone?
Deinstitutionalization really started during the early 60s.
That was a turning point for Vincent Atchity, the executive director for Mental Health Colorado.
The Kennedy family's recognition of how important mental health is.
This is when the country, including Colorado, started moving away from psychiatric institutions for good reasons. There were little standards of health care. People were hidden away, restrained, even experimented on.
Part of that movement led to the creation of community mental health centers.
Atchity said while that was the right decision, it never materialized in the right way and fell short on access and enough resources while beds were vanishing. So many people have been institutionalized in another way, arrested and in jail. And as the population keeps growing, the problem has become more intense. And yet in 2018, we saw a familiar situation play out again after a new federal law passed.
It's really intended to get kids out of institutional settings and back into their homes and communities. So we supported that.
But Zach Zaslow with Children's Hospital Colorado said it had unintended consequences.
In Colorado, we've done the first part of that deal. We have not yet built those supports and services. And so we've lost 2,000 residential beds over the last decade.
So why do critical services keep falling through the cracks?
When policymakers, who are all adults, are setting up systems, whether it's educational systems or other, government programs, kids are sometimes an afterthought.
And I think it's because our interest wanes. There are moments of enthusiastic commitment.
He says what's needed is a long-term commitment to funding. This time around, advocates say the energy is different.
We've got a moment right now where there's more awareness than ever before, perhaps.
Parents like Kari are at the Capitol telling lawmakers to pay attention in the long run, not just now.
I know that Robbie was enough, and I want other kids that maybe can relate to how Robbie felt, that they are enough.
So Robbie's parents started a foundation in his honor called Robbie's Hope. And Kari has been telling families to figure out your resources before a crisis. Have these conversations when people are healthy. And there was this big infusion of one-time money through COVID rescue dollars. And what Children's Hospital said was really important about that was that it was actually split up properly. Kids make up a third of the state population, so around a third of that money was dedicated to them. One thing they said that would make a really big difference is addressing that ongoing problem of reimbursement for providers, because right now a lot of providers are losing money when they're providing this kind of care, Kyle, especially for their lower income patients.
When you talk about issues going back decades, I know we like to think that we've come so far in the way that we deal with mental health, but you see a lot of those same issues that truly have cropped up for generations.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely progress, but also if you look back to the 50s, Vincent said that there were staffing shortages in this space. In the 70s, nurses went on strike because they were underpaid and they were so burnt out. And it's some of those patterns that you just see decade after decade after decade, which is why they're really holding out hope, Kyle, that this time with the sheer number of people talking about it, they hope that that keeps up that pressure, especially with lawmakers, to continue to think about this and fund it versus underfunding it, which is what we have seen for so long.
Anusha, thank you. It's tax time. And what we know is that some families who need their refund the most will not get it. The federal government will keep that money because these families, often working a bunch of jobs to get by, cannot afford help with their taxes. In comes the Denver Asset Building Coalition, the nonprofit that we're featuring in this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. Their small staff, just 4 people and a bunch of tax prep volunteers, put $8.5 million back into the pockets of Coloradans last year. I mean, it's their money. They deserve to get it if they can. But the beauty of the Asset Building Coalition's work is that that money, that $8.5 million a year, then ripples out into the community because families will spend it on car repairs they couldn't afford so they can keep getting to work. They'll spend it on medical or dental care they've been putting off. The nonprofit works with clients across the metro area each year, clients whose faces we've blurred out for their privacy because it's their taxes after all. And they can help them resolve more complicated tax situations as well as just basic returns and help them save what they do get back in the returns. We really are talking about the lowest income Coloradans here, people earning up to $35,000, families making up to $58,000. Often they'll bring in a stack of W-2 forms, all kinds of employers, because they're grabbing work hours whenever and however they can to get by. And being able to get back what they're due from the government, taxes, is life-changing. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us started. The Asset Building Coalition's leaders are honest about the fact that it can be really tough to raise money for their work. As far as nonprofits go, it's not sexy, it's tax prep. But if you're looking to turn a donation of a few dollars into a ton of dollars that are going to help those most in need in Colorado, this is a small nonprofit that delivers a huge payoff. It's why people come to them each year from around the state for their help. Denver's hopping on the latest TikTok trend by kicking it to the curb. And heads up, the IRS is eyeing our TABOR refunds. That's next. Denver Mayor Michael Hancock can dance. He is not shy about doing that at various events. He just can't do it on TikTok as of tomorrow, at least if he wants to use a city phone to do that. Denver's Technology Services Office says starting tomorrow, TikTok will be deleted from all city-owned devices and employees won't be able to download it from the App Store. Denver's leaders are concerned about the app's ability to capture data like passwords. The state has yet to ban TikTok from government devices. The federal government has imposed a ban for federal workers. In Colorado's congressional delegation, you got bipartisan agreement between Republican Ken Buck and Democrat Michael Bennet that there should be restrictions on TikTok downloads for all Americans. The concern is that that Chinese-owned app is collecting data on Americans and sharing it with the Chinese government.
Well, we had a pretty nice afternoon out there, but change is on its way quickly, already making its way into northwestern portions of the state. Right now, though, we're still dry in Denver, not too much cloud cover, 39 degrees. It feels like 31 out there with winds coming in from the northwest at around 15 miles per hour. So that change that's pushing in is going to be snow showers and strong winds. We're already seeing that snow push into the northwestern corner of the state. We did even have a snow squall warning that was going to be in effect until 6:30. This was going to be between Ringley and Meeker, but it looks like that has been allowed to expire early. Even outside of that, though, we are going to continue to watch for that snow to push on in. Oh, there it is. But as it pushes in, we're going to watch for strong winds behind that. So we do have several winter weather advisories until early tomorrow morning, mostly for northern portions of the high country. And then we have strong wind advisories as well, northwestern corner and southwestern corners of the state. We're going to continue to watch for that. For the rest of us, those snow showers become spottier as they push into the front range later tonight around bedtime, 9, 10 o'clock. We'll see those lows near 20 20 degrees. And after a cold day tomorrow in store with those highs only in the 30s, strong winds stick around tomorrow. We do start to rebound as we make our way into the weekend.
Colorado says you get to keep all of your TABOR refund. The IRS says not so fast. And while the arrival of migrants in Denver has slowed way down, the city's preparing for the future and still helping those who have come here. That's next. Tonight's next question jumps off another question we got last week about whether or not our TABOR refunds are taxable income. The state says they are not, but the IRS now says not so sure. So the IRS is now telling taxpayers in 19 states that they should wait to file their taxes while the IRS works with state governments to figure out how they're going to handle special tax refunds or one-time payments. The IRS list includes Colorado. Colorado's Department of Revenue tells us they do not think that the TABOR refund should be taxable. That's what they're telling the IRS. But this has not yet been sorted out on a federal level. The IRS says if you've already filed a return, don't worry about it, hold tight. But this guidance and any changes will be coming within the week. The city of Denver is expecting more cash from the state to help shelter migrants who have come here from the southern border. The state gave Denver $1.5 million in grants in December to help cover the cost of sheltering and transportation and staffing those shelters. Denver's Department of Human Services is asking City Council to sign off on a grant extension, which would give the city another $1 million to help cover those costs. Denver estimates it spent $4.8 million so far to accommodate more than 4,500 migrants. Human Services told City Council that the new funding could be used to pay for 100 shelter assistants. The city is in the process of hiring those folks. Funding the sheltering effort, preparing for potential future influx of migrants, that's something that'll be an issue for the next mayor as well. We're going to talk to those candidates next week in the first televised debate in the race. Next Thursday, February 16th, candidates for Denver mayor will debate live on KTVD and 9 News Plus from 7 until 9 p.m. because there's going to be 13 of them up there. The debate will be held in conjunction with Metro State University, Claro, and the Denver Elections Fair Election Fund. This is the first year for that fund with matching taxpayer dollars for candidates who choose to participate. All 13 who are getting those funds will be on stage. This is the first of 3 mayoral debates we will air on 9 News. We'll have your feedback next. There are Coloradans who will not get the tax refunds that they deserve, and it's often the Coloradans who could use those dollars the most. That's why the Denver Asset Building Coalition was created. The nonprofit helps low-income Coloradans across the metro area get their taxes together every year. And last year, that small nonprofit and its volunteers brought $8.5 million back to our community. That's money that these families then go spend locally, so it has a ripple effect of benefits for Colorado. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to join me in donating to the Denver Asset Building Coalition in this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. Note from Kevin, who says, always great for there to be something genuinely good on a news program. Thanks for giving the microgiving campaign a platform. It's my pleasure. I think this might be our 140th. It's either 139 or 140 consecutive weeks of your generosity. Love this from Jeff, who writes about the Department of Regulatory Agencies having trouble regulating psychedelic mushrooms. Lack of knowledge on their part. Jeff says, why are you being so harsh on Dora, man? Like, shrooms are all about experimentation and finding your own way. Chillax, bro. They'll regulate psychedelics somehow. That's a good feedback, Jeff. We don't give awards for feedback, but if we did, you'd get an award. Congratulations. Tell your family and friends. See you next time.